"25 years ago, in April 1992, 5 top separatist leaders were released from prison in Kashmir. The newly appointed governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Gary Saxena, thought this would resume political dialogue with those who spoke of Azadi.
वहाँ से वापसी जब हुई तो फिर हमने ये महसूस किया, हम पांच इकट्ठे थे, मैं था, शबीर साहब थे, लोन साहब थे, प्रोफेसर साहब थे और गिलानी साहब थे। हमने ये महसूस किया कि सियासी हैसियत से इसको आगे चलाया जाए, लेकिन उस वक्त तक इसका कोई नाम नहीं था। तो लोग ये हमको भी पंच प्यारे कहते थे क्योंकि हम 5 ही आदमी जेल से निकले थे।
In December 1992, the 19-year-old head priest of Kashmir, Mirwais Umar Farooq, called a meeting of religious, social and political organizations at Mirwais Manzil. The aim of this meeting was to lay the foundation of a broad alliance of parties that were opposed to Indian rule in Jammu and Kashmir. 7 months later, the APHC was born with Mirwais Umar Farooq as its first chairman. On 3rd of September 1993, in front of a huge crowd at the Hazratbal Shrine in Srinagar, the APHC, or the All-Party Hurriyat Conference, was formally launched. It was a grouping of separatist organizations. As of now, there are some 26 socio-religious political outfits that are grouped under the APHC. But our person of interest this week is the stereotypical Hurriyat leader. Many people think he's a hawk. Some say under the circumstances, he's a dove. But the reality of the Hurriyat is something like Roshomon's truth. It depends on which version you want to hear and whose version you want to believe.
Political leadership thought that armed struggle alone cannot help. So there must be a political outfit who will pursue the freedom struggle on, say, peaceful terms. And this leadership was convinced that issues cannot be settled through violence.
On July 8, 2016, Hizbul Mujahideen militant Burhan Wani was killed by security forces. The Kashmir Valley saw protests unprecedented in recent times. The Hurriyat channelized the protests by giving it form and dimension. They began issuing weekly protest calendars, a calendar that dictated guidelines as to when one can step out of the house and when one should stay in.
Yeah, it's if that's what the elders have decided, okay, so be it. If we don't have a better program than them. The real fear in Kashmir now is that the youngsters have begun to believe that maybe they can provide a better program than the Hurriyat, and that would be dangerous.
You see, the calendar which was issued by the Hurriyat, the system started in 2008. It was taken, as I said earlier, it was a leaf taken out from the Intifada. It's all about non-violent revolution. But the term non-violent is a very comparative term here. The stone is considered to be a non-violent weapon. Protests using the stone are considered to be completely non-violent in this philosophy of thinking. The Hurriyat issued its calendars in 2008, and since there was a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for the Hurriyat in 2008, it carried the day right till 2010. But thereafter it petered out and ran out of steam, ran out of stamina. Uh, I don't think today people are following the calendar in the manner that they followed it in 2008 or they followed it in 2010. They are perhaps following it more out of peer pressure.
So whether Hurriyat enjoys a complete support on the ground, one can debate over that. But the question is that in 2016 also, when we were looking at the situation in the sense that there has to be some kind of relief to the people, I mean, there was a calendar which was being issued by Hurriyat Conference, and it was being responded by the people. And when Hurriyat said that there will be no calendar, so there is no calendar, so there is normalcy. So that I think is enough to judge that how much Hurriyat does exist on the ground.
The constitution of the Hurriyat Conference states that it is a union of political, social and religious parties of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, set up, amongst other things, to endeavour for an alternative negotiated settlement of the Kashmir dispute among all the three parties to the dispute, India, Pakistan and the people of Jammu and Kashmir, under the auspices of the UN or any other friendly country, provided that such settlement reflects the will of the people. Yet in May 2017, second-rung Hurriyat leaders were caught on camera openly talking about funding from Pakistan to destabilize the process of normalization in the valley. A massive crackdown followed, with raids and detentions of Hurriyat leaders and officials. It seemed that it was ISI funding that dictated the Hurriyat leaders' agenda.
Again, the problem is there is zero credibility of New Delhi-based channels in Jammu and Kashmir. There is very, very less credibility of Delhi itself in Jammu and Kashmir. So even, for example, even if people know, no movement, no struggle in the world can actually survive without funds. That's impossible. So there are people from Jammu and Kashmir, ordinary people from Jammu and Kashmir, business people, wealthy people, who actually do give money out of their own volition to run the Hurriyat Conference. And yeah, this is no secret. They also get some funds from Pakistan, but then they have their own logic to come to their defense, that they say that they give money to the pellet victims. They also take care of the people who are hit by bullets, who are injured or who are killed by government forces action.
See, most of the funding used to come from Pakistan, all right? Some of it from Saudi Arabia as well. But once the engagement between Delhi and the Hurriyat started, of course there was support from Delhi, in the sense that we were concerned about their security, you know. I remember very vividly a conversation with Mufti Sahib in the summer of 2014, when Mufti was at the height of his power, you could say, in Srinagar. He was confident then that he would win all the 3 parliament seats, and he was confident that he would win the assembly elections which were to follow. And one of the things he said to me, he said, you know, Pakistan is reaching out to everybody now, and I fear for the Mir Vaiz's security. Please have his security beefed up. So that is how these people got security. It was both the state and the center which supported security for the separatists, and they've had security ever since.
As far as their strategy is concerned, they have come under severe criticism for a long time, essentially in case of prolonged crisis, and their I would say that their stand on the day-to-day hartal and strikes has been criticized. And I think that's how they have modified themselves, and we have seen in past 3-4 months the way Hurriyat has behaved in Kashmir, especially in the aftermath of the elections on April 9 when 8 people were killed, or in the recent past. I think they have tried to change themselves, but their strategy certainly has come under criticism. Their functioning has come under criticism. The split in Hurriyat in itself had become a huge debate when it happened, that why there is so much of ego and self-interest which is playing more important role in the functioning of Hurriyat Conference rather than what they claim to represent, that is the political sentiment in Kashmir.
Recently, the aspect of local terrorists being recruited and then being inducted into the whole game of terror in South Kashmir. Obviously, as I said, the Hurriyat has got an organization. How much of the financial part of it particularly plays a role in actually inspiring, aiding the terrorist strengths in South Kashmir or North Kashmir, I cannot say exactly. But I do think that a terrorist movement cannot function without, it can't be effective on ground unless it has a financial backing. It has to have financial backing, it has to have backing of wherewithal in terms of explosives and weapons and ammunition. To that extent, I think there is a fair amount of backing which probably comes from the Hurriyat, particularly the financial side of it. And for many, many years, we have always been saying that if the Indian establishment manages to control the financial conduits in Kashmir, which seem to be quite open, it seems to be as if they're all coming through the legitimate means of things like Western Union, money transfer, or even the international banking channels and things like that, we will be able to perhaps have a greater control on agitation and on the terrorist activities in summer every year.
The Hurriyat Leaders' association and closeness with Pak-sponsored militancy dates back to the days of its formation. The newly formed Hurriyat faced its first crisis a month after the formal announcement of its formation. On 15th of October 1993, 40 heavily armed militants took over the shrine in Srinagar, where the holy relic of the Prophet's hair was kept. By evening, security forces had surrounded the shrine and the siege of Hazratbal had begun.
They were saying that they had come into the shrine to protect the holy relic from us. So I said to them that in protecting the holy relic, you and I and we are going to be fighting over this, and we will succeed in destroying the shrine together with the relic.
4 days into the siege, on 19th of October, the Hurriyat organized a big procession. The crowds, led by Hurriyat leaders, marched towards the shrine of Hazratbal. Hurriyat leader Abdul Ghani Lone was leading the procession.
The BSF came and they stopped us, but the people ruthlessly, people ran away, they scattered. And they met me there in presence of the press, national press and international press. Then they took me to nearby Akhada building, and I was there ruthlessly beaten. I was undone, half dead.
As Friday prayers ended, people of Bijbehara, a town about 50 kilometers from Srinagar, began to gather on the main road. As part of a planned protest against the siege, the crowd began to swell and the atmosphere was charged. The situation worsened and the BSF personnel stationed there opened fire. The official figures were 36 dead and hundreds wounded. The local agitators claimed the casualty figures were much higher. With the massacre at Bijbehara, efforts intensified to end the Hazratbal crisis as soon as possible. And the Hurriyat stepped forward as the self-proclaimed representatives of the people of Kashmir to negotiate with the government.
ये एक मुतबरक मकाम का इज्जत का सवाल है। आप भी यहाँ हिंदू भी आते हैं, वो भी इसकी इज्जत करते हैं, मुसलमान भी इज्जत करता है, हर एक करता है इज्जत। हम ये चाहते हैं कि इसकी इज्जत को बहाल किया जाए। अगर आप पीछे हटेंगे और इनको पसेज दे देंगे सीधे तरीके पर, ये आपके लिए भी बड़ाई है, आपके लिए भी अजमत है, हमारे लिए भी अजमत है।
Preferring discretion to any damage to Hazratbal, the Indian state backed down, and exactly a month after the siege began, in the early hours of 16th of November 1993, the militants and their hostages streamed out of the shrine. Granted safe passage, they disappeared into the countryside just as they had come. The siege of Hazratbal was over and the Hurriyat had proved its credentials to the people of Kashmir, to the militant separatist, and to the Indian state.
Hurriyat is not not a militant organization. Hurriyat is not someone. Hurriyat people are not someone who are wielding guns in their hands. They are the people with a political base, with the likes of Sayyid Ali Gilani or the Mirwais Umar Farooq, or now if you talk about the joint resistance camp, then you include Mirwais, Gilani, Yasin Malik, Shabir Shah, and others. So these are very respected people in Jammu and Kashmir. So there's no question about Hurriyat being feared, or Hurriyat being there's no question, because they never used force. They never believed in the use of force. They are the people who believe in a democratic process, and who actually are kind of peaceniks, so to speak, who want a peaceful solution to this dispute.
The Hurriyat has been keen to talk. It has been keen to engage, because after all, its credibility depends on that. Its credibility has depended basically on two things. One is the backing that it got initially from militants and militancy and the gun. Once that gun, lost its importance, then the importance could only come from talking to Delhi. And I think, I've said this to Pakistani friends, that they have done a great disservice to the Hurriyat and to Kashmir by not supporting this engagement between the Hurriyat and Delhi. And now we ourselves have stopped engaging with the Hurriyat, which is, I think, unfortunate.
The allegations against Hurriyat leaders have always been that they fuel the separatist agenda that incites violence in the valley. The origins date back to the time when it coincided with the rise of militancy in the valley during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Pakistan, aggressively pursuing an agenda of war by proxy, needed credible insiders who would internationalize the Kashmir issue. The Hurriyat became an ideal platform to promote Kashmiri secessionist cause. But it took an election to create an atmosphere in which the Hurriyat would be born. In 1987, Rajiv Gandhi and Farooq Abdullah decided that they would fight the elections together in Kashmir, the Congress and the National Conference. It was not a very popular decision, because the local Kashmiri, the people on the ground, they felt that it was a threat to their regional identity. So the opposition space got occupied by separatist element who grouped themselves together under the umbrella of the Muslim United Front, or the Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, when the elections happened and the results came out, Farooq Abdullah won very easily and convincingly. But the allegations always were that the elections had been shamelessly rigged in favor of the NC Congress combined.
And if any election is rigged, you can go to the court and get the case set aside. Did any one of them who say that the election was rigged go to the court? My candidates lost election. We accepted wherever we lost.
The election was a watershed. Defeated candidates switched from the ballot to the bullet, egged on by Pakistan. Another and much more deadly phase of Kashmir's struggle for identity had begun. Yusuf Shah, the Jamaat-e-Islami candidate who lost the Amir Akadil constituency in Srinagar, emerged as Sayyid Salahuddin, the supreme commander of Hizbul Mujahideen, and his counting agent Yasin Malik resumed command of the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front.
See, as far as 1987 elections are concerned, I think that that was a turning point in the history of Jammu and Kashmir, and especially Kashmir, because that was the last time that people had reposed faith in democracy, notwithstanding the fact that the political problem had been lingering on for a long time. But generally people had the complaint that the rulers were being thrust upon them from Delhi, and they wanted to actually take part in an election which would be fair and free, but that didn't happen, and the elections were largely rigged, and it it turned out to be, I would say, a catastrophe in that sense.
Some analysts feel that that was the last nail in the coffin of Indian democracy in Jammu and Kashmir. But at the same time, I would like to emphasize that it would be a very simplistic and naive analysis if one were to say that what happened in 1989 was a direct result of what happened in 1987, which I do not agree with. I see Kashmir has a context. Even before the 1987 elections, there was plebiscite front movement from 1953 to until 1975, which was led by the Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, spearheaded by his Lieutenant Mirza Afzal Beg, and there was also a brief Al-Fatah movement, and even before the partition 1947 there was Quit Kashmir movement, which was also spearheaded by Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. So Kashmir conflict has a history which cannot be ignored. There is historicity and context which if you ignore, then you will always reach wrong conclusions.
By the early 1990s, Kashmir faced a full-scale armed insurgency. The Farooq government had been dismissed and the state was under governor's rule. A deep sense of resentment, bottled up over the years, exploded in the form of support for armed rebellion. Militants rapidly become heroes and martyrs and legends. With the rise of pro-Pakistani militancy, the attack on minorities increased and the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from the valley had begun.
So the Hurriyat has been the front face, of course, all these years. In the 90s, they played a greater role in terms of violence, in terms of, I won't say direct involvement in violence, but they had a tremendous hold on the infrastructure which is created for this entire anti-national movement. Let me try and qualify that. In 2008, it became quite evident that the manner in which the Hurriyat had control over areas of North Kashmir, particularly the Handwara area, each time there was a terrorist killing or a mistaken death by accident or anything like that of a Kashmiri citizen, you found within minutes or with a couple of hours, you found the roads were blocked, you had people and rabble-rousers out on the streets, you had the body kept on the road, you had lawyers who were ready to take on at any time. They had a lot of intelligence people of their own who were looking for opportunities how to embarrass India, how to embarrass the security forces. I think this organization goes down right to the block, tehsil level, and is morphed so professionally that it is not easy to discover where exactly does it exist.
By March 1993, all talk of Azadi had finished. It had faded. There was no talk of Azadi. So it had nothing to do with Azadi, the Hurriyat formation. It was just that Pakistan, as things began to happen and grow, Pakistan felt it needed a political face, because Pakistan has never been fully reconciled to the accession. So in that context, the Hurriyat became a body which would, they felt, do what they wanted, rather than the mainstream, which was basically in those days the National Conference, was not so much in their control. Sheikh Saab had never been with Pakistan, and nor was Farooq Abdullah going to toe their line. So they needed this body, and that's how it came about. But it had nothing to do with Azadi or dreams of Azadi, no.
What is the difference in Kashmir between a mainline political leader, say from the ruling PDP or the main opposition National Conference, and the Hurriyat leader? Is there a difference in their ideology? All this and more in our next episode when we continue with the person of interest, the Hurriyat leader.